Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. So, dear devotees, Maharaj has joined the meeting. Uh, Maharaj, can I introduce you a little bit, if you allow?
Here we go. Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'm just trying to unmute myself here.
Thanks. So, today we are very extremely fortunate to have with us His Holiness Prahladananda Swami Maharaj. Maharaj is a very senior and advanced disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and having joined ISKCON way back in 1969. From the very early days, he has been serving deeply. He has been deeply involved in Srila Prabhupada's mission, like from temple leadership and intense book distribution to opening new temples and preaching all over the world. Maharaj took sannyas in 1982, and he later became an initiating spiritual master, guiding countless devotees on the path of Krishna consciousness. And for the past 30 years, Maharaj has been serving in ISKCON sannyas minister, which means that he has been responsible for approving every sannyasa given in ISKCON during this time, and which is a very serious and trusted responsibility. Along with this, Maharaj also serves as Con Minister for Health and Welfare, showing his deep concern not only for devotees' spiritual lives but also for their overall well-being. He has taught for many years at VIHE, Vaishnava Institute for Higher Education in Vrindavan, and he continues to travel extensively, especially in Europe, Eastern Europe, India, and around the world, sharing Krishna consciousness. Currently, Marge is also in Australia and he was traveling, but he accepted our invitation. So, thank you so much, Marge, for accepting our invitation. We are truly blessed to have such a senior Vaishnava, experienced leader, and caring well wisher with us today. Please, dear devotees, join me in warmly welcoming His Holiness Prahladananda Swami Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj. Over to you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me well?
Yes, Maharaj.
Good. So let's offer our obeisances to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Satarane. If everyone who's joined could put on their video, that would be appreciated. It's much nicer to talk to a face than some letters, if it's possible. Today I was asked to give some overview on Isopanisad, specifically mantras 4 to 8, dealing with the vision of the Mahabhagavat. There are two different types of Mahabhagavats. There's Mahabhagavat or Uttama Adhikari. Well, actually, I should say there's Uttama Adhikari by faith, and there's Uttama Adhikari by eligibility. Because generally speaking, when we talk about Kanista, Madhyama, and Uttama, we're talking about simply different levels. Kanista generally means neophyte or beginning in some particular field. Madhya means intermediate in that field, and Uttama means the topmost in that field. In the third chapter of the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada explains about Kanista, Madhyama, and Uttama by eligibility to accept devotional service. But later on in the Nectar of Devotion, beginning approximately chapters 17, 18, 19, Prabhupada talks about Uttama Adhikari by faith, by realization. The difference is that Uttama Adhikari by eligibility brings one to the platform of liberation. For instance, in the terms of eligibility by neophyte and Kanista, Madhyama, and Uttama by eligibility. The kanistas by eligibility would be considered, for instance, Gajendra, due to his fact that he was suffering. He took shelter of Krishna. Similarly, Dhruva Maharaj, his eligibility for devotional service was considered kanista because he was interested in material gain, namely getting a kingdom greater than that of his great-grandfather. Eligibility by Madhyam would be considered the sage of Naimisharanya because they were Gyani Bhaktas. They were inquisitive to know what the absolute truth was, and therefore they approached Sutta Goswami to find out. The topmost eligibility was Uttama, was the four Kumaras, pure Brahmins. And above them are those who are Vaishnavas. Eventually, as we know from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the four Kumaras became pure devotees when they went to Vaikuntha and saw Narayan, Lord Narayan. Of course, they had a problem of cursing the doorkeepers, Jai and Vijay, but that's another subject matter. But beyond eligibility, Uttama, we have eligibility, but we have faith. So where Uttamadhikari by eligibility leaves off, Uttamadhikari by faith begins. Not quite, because even on the platform of Nishta, of liberation, which the four Kumaras obtained, we have Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, and Prema. An actual Uttama Adhikari by faith begins at the platform of Bhava and actually extends into Prema. Bhava is considered to be one ray in the sunlight of Prema. This Isopanisad, when we're talking about Uttama Adhikari, we're talking about Mahabhagavat, Uttama Adhikari by faith, not simply by eligibility. This is explained throughout Prabhupada's books, especially in Nectar of Instruction. But here is also explained that what is the vision of an Uttama Adhikari. And the fourth mantra, the vision begins by explaining that the absolute truth is the person. Now we find that there are Uttama Adhikaris by eligibility, such as the four Kumaras, who were at one point, they were impersonalists. And then we have the others, such as Gajendra, Dhruva Maharaj, and to some extent even the sages of Naimisharanya. They were eligibility by faith, by the eligibility by either karma jnani bhaktas or jnani mishra bhaktas, and therefore they were to some extent they were materialists, while the four Kumaras were impersonalists. But Sri Upanishad begins in the fourth mantra by telling us that God is a person. And he has certain characteristics, such as he's fixed in his abode, so anyone who has abode must be a person. Simultaneously acts everywhere through his energies, although it's inconceivable to us, someone who's acting through his energies, who's moving the sun in his orbit, must be a person. Every day, at least the watch that I have to keep on setting it because it's always falling behind. So I have to move it or else it wouldn't be measuring properly the movement of the sun. So if I have to direct my little watch to keep track of the movements of the sun, what to speak of the person, it must be a person who's moving the sun. But Sri Upanishad in the fourth verse cautions that, according to Brahma Samhita and other literature, he's unapproachable by mental speculation. Therefore, in the very beginning of, well, in the talks between Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ramananda Roy is trying to give Chaitanya Mahaprabhu the process of self-realization in this age. And it begins with the verse, Vanashrama vicharita purushena pamakpaman Vishnu rabhite panta nainam vardhanam. That we can obtain perfection through the Varna and Ashram system. As we see, the Gajendra, Dhruva Maharaj, the sages of Namacharanya, the four Kumaras, they more or less followed a path of Varna and Ashram. I mean, to some extent, obviously, Gajendra didn't have a Varna and Ashram. And Dhruva Maharaj, although he's a Kshatriya, his path of perfection wasn't exactly through Varnashram Dharma. But Varnashram Dharma is a general process of going through being afflicted to wanting material wealth, to becoming inquisitive, Jignasu, and then Gyani, becoming a Gyani. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't accept the path of Varnashram as relevant for this age, at least, for the process of self-realization. It may be necessary, as Prabhupada would want to establish it, for creating stability within society so that people could fix their minds upon Krishna, or at least regulate their habits physically and mentally so that they could actually perform yajna, do some sacrifice for Vishnu. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said this is external, and he asked Ramananda Roy to go on, and Ramananda Roy went through practically all the phases of devotional service from Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, Nasoshiti Nakangshati, to Yat Karoshi Arashnasi Ajdahoshi Dadasi Yat Tapasi Kunti Yat Tat Kurushva that we're not this body, and that we should give up hankering lamentation, see all living entities as equal, to offer everything we're doing to Krishna, Sarva Dharma Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, to surrender to Krishna. But this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought was impractical for this age. As we could see, no one's about to just give up everything and surrender to Krishna. And as far as the elaboration that Krishna gives in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, step by step, to come to that platform through Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma to Sarvadharma Parityajya Mamekam, it's quite a sequence that most people are not about prepared to follow, to become renounced in their activities, offer the results to Krishna, to develop transcendental knowledge, especially in Krishna gets in the 18th chapter about the three modes of material nature and how to act in goodness, to give up even the mode of goodness and try to be transcendental to it, to finally give up everything and surrender to Krishna. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu still says that this is not practical for the age. Until Ramananda Roy quotes from Lord Brahma and says, Gyane priyasa munapasanamanteva vivanti sanmukaritam bhavadiya vartam stane stita shutikitam tanuvang mudira ye priyasa jita jitoptaistrilokam. I give up speculation. That we could do. Because our whole life is absorbed in mental speculation, beginning with she loves me or she loves me not, she loves me, she loves me. It's all mental speculation. Because it has nothing to do with Krishna, and therefore we're accepting and rejecting everything that we see according to our material conception of what we're seeing. That's called mental speculation. Either we like something, or we don't like something. And therefore we don't see everyone equally as a spirit soul, because Maya takes our intelligence away. So that's why when we chant japa, we're just advised just to chant and listen. Because if we chant and listen, then there's no room for mental speculation to distract us. And as soon as we start paying attention, then we're right into the realm of mental speculation, even when we're chanting japa. And therefore, Krishna can only be known by, as it says in the fourth mantra, by devotion and in mercy. In other words, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, samaham samabhuteshu name dveshtu stana priyaha yevajanti tumam bhakta maite teshu chapyaham. That we have to see that there's a difference between approaching or just being in our relationship with Krishna right now, of asking Krishna for things. And although materialists may not know that they're asking Krishna for things, but they're very desiring, is being noted by Paramatma within the heart. And Paramatma is the one who senses the desires, just like one can understand the flavor of a flower by smelling it, and arranges his material, through his material energy to fulfill those desires of the living entity according to what they deserve. So therefore, everyone has a relation with Krishna eternally, and in this material world, that relationship can be simply desiring that Krishna give the intelligence by which one can fulfill desires, conditioned desires, or desiring that Krishna arrange things in the material world to facilitate one's materialistic ambitions and desires. On the other hand, the devotee, as Krishna tells Arjuna at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, he says that this knowledge is coming down in disciple succession, and therefore Arjuna was able to accept this knowledge, appreciate it, because of two qualifications. Sevayam mayatedya yogo prakta paratana bhakto sime sakha cheti sahasram hietad uttamam. Arjuna was Krishna's devotee and he was his friend. Therefore, when he heard the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, although apparently he was under the illusory energy, but he was friendly to Krishna. He was a friend of Krishna. He didn't reject Krishna, and he didn't blindly accept whatever Krishna was saying. He was willing to hear from Krishna because he knew that Krishna was his well-wisher. At the same time, he was aspiring to become a devotee of Krishna, to actually carry out what Krishna said. So because he was appreciated Krishna as a friend, he was willing to listen to him because he understood Krishna was his friend. He was his Saka. And he was, whatever he was going to tell him was for his benefit. And he was willing to carry it out and try to become Krishna's devotee. A devotee means that you listen to the person and then you follow their instructions. Unfortunately, nowadays, people don't know who to accept as their leader, who to listen to, and who to follow. And therefore, andaya tandira pagiyamanas tepisha tantra ru dami bada. Most people are blind, and they're following blind leaders. And therefore, the result is they listen to them, they follow their example, but they wind up in the same miserable condition that their leader winds up. Or Srila Prabhupada told Professor Kataski at the University of Moscow, when Professor Kataski could not accept even the idea that we're eternal souls, or that even though we should follow a system of elevating our consciousness from just giving up our unlimited material desires to try to accept how to live properly in the material world, to becoming inquisitive about what is reality, to even becoming a Brahmin and washing our hands before we eat. Professor Kataski could not accept any of those ideas that people could elevate their consciousness. On the other hand, he thought that everyone was eternally destined to remain a Shudra on the lowest level of consciousness. But Prabhupada said, actually, there's no difference between your philosophy and our philosophy. Your philosophy says that you have to accept Lenin as your leader and follow him, and our philosophy says that we accept Krishna as our leader and we follow him. So you have to accept the leader, whatever your position in, material or spiritual, and follow them. If you follow Lenin's footsteps, that wherever Lenin is, then that's where you're going to wind up. And if we're following Krishna's footsteps, wherever Krishna is, that's where we'll go. Therefore, by devotion and mercy, because everyone is accepting some leader and following their instructions with whatever degree of devotion they can, and by the mercy of Krishna, they get their result. As the leader is getting his result, so Krishna will give the same result to whoever follows the leader, material or spiritual. So the purport explains that Prabhupada that although the Lord is one and localized, his energies are unlimited and all-pervading, as fire pervades heat and light throughout without leaving its plate. Eka desha sita gya gya itoshna vishnu vimsa parasya brahmana shaktir vivi parasya brahmana shaktir tedam jagate jagat. So as heat and light is fire is in one place, but expands its heat and light everywhere. So Krishna is in one place, expanding his energies throughout the material and spiritual universes. So the vision of the Mahabhagavat is he sees Krishna everywhere in this particular verse, but never impersonally. He sees everything as Krishna's energy, but he never confuses the energy with the energetic. He never says everything is God in an impersonal sense, but he sees Krishna behind everything in this fourth verse. And he sees all living entities, not only the material energy as Krishna's energy, but he also sees all living beings as eternal servants of Krishna. So he never tries to compete with Krishna, he never tries to measure Krishna. He simply, with knowledge, he never tries to understand Krishna fully because he knows that Krishna is unlimited. He knows that Krishna is beyond him, and he knows, so his knowledge deepens into humility, not pride. And he sees his own life as Krishna's instrument. So the Bhagava's vision in this particular verse is that my intelligence is Krishna's, my speech is Krishna's, my strength is Krishna's, and my preaching is Krishna's. There's no independent power anywhere, including in himself. So this fourth mantra deals with who is Krishna. So the vision begins with knowing the object of vision, who we're trying to see, and then what we're seeing. Now the fifth mantra, actually we can read these mantras as we go along. I didn't read the first mantra, but we'll go on. Mantra 5. Tad ajati, tad najati, tad dure, tad vakantike, tad avantike, tad antarasya sarvasya, tad usarvasyasya vayataha. The Supreme Lord walks and does not walk. He is far away and he is very near to all. He is within everything and yet he is outside of everything. One thing I'd like to mention is that when I first joined the movement in 1968, actually, at that time we didn't have Isopanisad. Matter of fact, we didn't have any of it. Most of the books that we have now, we didn't even have Bhagavad Gita. Our Bhagavad Gita, our knowledge of Bhagavad Gita was limited to one verse without the Sanskrit. The one verse was in English as a translation of Dr. Radha Krishna's Bhagavad Gita, which Prabhupada told us we couldn't read because he was an impersonalist. So the only thing we had was the one verse, as the embodied soul continually passes in this body, from boyhood to youth to old age, So similarly, the soul will enter into another body at the time of death. The self-realized souls are not bewildered by these changes. So the devotees who gave class at that time, that's the only thing they had when they gave a Bhagavad Gita class, that one verse. And so for some months, that's all I heard, that one verse and the commentary, which was by a devotee who didn't have a commentary to give a commentary from. Later on, when we finally were going on a book distribution meant Bhakti Godheads at that time, 8 hours a day on the street in Buffalo, even when the snow and it was 20 below zero, 8 hours a day on the street at least, chanting Hare Krishna or distributing Bhakti Godhead magazines. After some time of 8 hours of chanting Hare Krishna, we wanted some variety. And at that time, the Isopanisad was printed. This is probably around the end of '69. And so, for variety, we used to chant the Isopanisad in the street. Om Purnam Araha Purnam Idam Purnam Purnam Udachate Purnam Araya Purnam Eva Vishishate. So we'd chant that regularly during our Harinams in the street, because that's was something new and exciting to chant at that time. Later on, Isopanisad wasn't one of the books that we used to give classes on, and so therefore it was somewhat forgotten by many of the devotees. Although Isopanisad is more or less a summary of a good part of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So here in the fifth mantra, how does Krishna relate to everything? So here it says he walks and he does not walk, he is far away, but he is very near to all. So Krishna's inconceivable potencies is explained in this verse paradoxically. How can one be motionless and yet be faster than anyone? How could he be far away but closer to anyone, to the soul than anyone else? How could he be inside of everything yet outside of everything at the same time? So this mantra moves us from a philosophical acceptance to a mystic perception. So here the Mahabhagavata's vision is that the Bhagavat lives within his paradoxes quite comfortably. He understands, for instance, Krishna may be far away in Goloka Vrindavan, but he's in the heart of all living entities as a super soul simultaneously by his inconceivable energy. He can be dancing with Srimati Radharani and hearing the prayers of his devotees at the same time in the material world and ripping apart Hiranyakashipu to protect Prahlad Maharaj. Now, how someone could be dancing with the gopis in the rasa dance and ripping apart a demon at the same time and is in the form of half lion, half man, is quite inconceivable. It's something we should probably not try to do. We can simply try to accept Krishna's inconceivable energies. So the analogy is just like he sees Krishna inside the heart of all living beings. Krishna is outside arranging circumstances, and Krishna is nearer than one's own mind. So he's far away like the sun, but he can enter into one's room like the sunlight through a window, warming one's skin directly. So just a summary in mantra 6 explains how does the devotee see others. So let's go to mantra 6.
Maharaj, would you
Yes.
want would you want me to like put up the verses on the screen
No,
for
I have them
everybody?
on my computer. It's all right.
Yeah, just in
Just
case, like for us, let me know, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
okay. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyeva vitashyati eva nupashyati sarvabhuteshu chatmanam tato na vidrigupsate. He who systematically sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord and sees all living entities as parts and parcels and sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being. So mantra 6 is about how does a devotee see others? And one who sees all living beings is in relation to the Supreme Lord. He sees every soul as belonging to Krishna, every soul is worthy of respect, and no one is his enemy. So this is no longer metaphysics, it's behavior. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna emphasizes this as he goes on speaking to Arjuna. He always explaining that, for instance, in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna will tell Arjuna that Yesham, that one, however one is enlightened by which one's knowledge is destroyed, Jnanena tutad agyanam yesham nashitam atmanaha tesham adityavaj jnanam prakashiti tatparam. When, however, one is enlightened by the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, just like the sun lights up everything in the daytime. So what is the vision of one who's actually seeing Krishna, the Mahabhagavat? And how does one become a Mahabhagavat? In other words, the sun doesn't necessarily come up all at once, but as it comes up, what does one become aware of? But one at least becomes aware of that one's enlightenment is due to one's association with the sun. As the sun comes up in the morning, then we're able to see things more and more clearly as the sunlight increases. So similarly, even at the beginning, what should we understand as we become a little conscious of Krishna? What should we understand about Krishna consciousness? So Krishna says that tad buddhiyas, tad atmanas, tad nishtas, tad parayanaha, kachantya puna avritim, jnana nirduta kama shaha. When one's intelligence, one's mind, one's faith, one's refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of all misgivings through complete knowledge, and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. So the thing is what we should see at the very beginning when we're hearing, we should understand what we're hearing about in the beginning, how we're going to become liberated from the material concept of life. From the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that our problem in the material world is due to the fact that we think we have so many problems, due to our material identification. Or as Prahlad Maharaj tells Lord Nrsingadev, that in the material world there's no enemy except for the uncontrolled mind. And as Krishna tells Arjuna in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Udarad atmanatmanam atmanam avasaryat atmaiva yatmano bandura atmaiva ripur atmanaha, that a man must elevate himself by his own mind and not degrade himself, that the mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. If one has conquered the mind, it's the best of friends. But if one has failed to do so, the very mind will remain the greatest enemy. So how to conquer the mind? Then Krishna says, tad buddhiyas, principally by developing our spiritual intelligence. We're not trying to conquer the mind by neglecting it, only by neglecting it, or by opposing it. We're trying to conquer the mind by going beyond it, to putting our mind on a different platform other than the material platform, by putting our mind on the spiritual platform, by developing our spiritual intelligence, so that we accept the spiritual platform and we become indifferent to the material platform. So that's principally by hearing. When Krishna says in the 18th chapter, when he gives Arjuna the process of spiritual realization, the direct process, when he says, Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru, Mame Vaishasi Satyam Te Prati Jani Priyosi Me. He begins with Manmana, as he says about Ambrish. We hear in the Srimad Bhagavatam about Ambrish Maharaj, Savaimana Krishna Padara Vindayo Vichamsi Vaikuntha Gunanuvardhane. That Ambrish Maharaj first of all fixed his mind upon Krishna. So that implies, because we're always hearing, that the beginning process of Shravanam, or as Krishna will say in the 7th chapter, that Maya Saktamanak Partha Yogam Yunjan Manashaya Asamshayam Samagramam Yatagyasasi Tatstrino. When he gets to the direct process of becoming Krishna conscious in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Maya Saktamanak Partha, to become a sakta, sakti, that is, having the mind fixed on Krishna. So how do we fix our mind upon Krishna? By following the process of devotional service. Savaimana Krishna Vadara Vindayo. I see. Maya Sakti Manak Parada. Yogam Yunja, by the process of yoga. Yunja Manashaya. So that process of yoga yunja is beginning with hearing. So by hearing, we develop our spiritual intelligence, and by such spiritual intelligence, we're able to choose properly thoughts about Krishna and accept them, and becoming indifferent to the thoughts that go through our mind about other subject matters. So that's by hearing about Krishna, because if we don't hear about Krishna, we have nothing to think about in terms of spiritual. But we hear about Krishna, and we accept that as worthy of contemplation and service and following instructions, and other things we neglect that go through our mind. They may tempt us, because as soon as one tries to become a devotee of Krishna, Maya will try to distract the devotee by so many allurements, so many other offers of happiness and enlightenment, and etc., etc. But the devotee accepts, by practice of hearing, then he develops his intelligence and understands what is actually worthy of thinking about. So that's called nishta, when one only accepts things in relationship to Krishna, or these practices to come to the platform. So we hear, we practice to fix the mind upon Krishna, and then the from the Buddha Nishta, then Tad Buddhayas Tad Atmanas Tad Nishta. Then one comes to the liberated platform. When all, as Prabhupada will say, all misgivings that we have, all our temptations to do other things for enjoyment or for enlightenment, they gradually become less important. Then one comes to the platform of Nishta. Fixed in devotional service, realizing that we're eternal, no more accepting hankerings or lamentations, and being able to see all living entities on the same level of spiritual understanding. Then Parayana. Then we understand our goal is to take shelter of Krishna. We may not be perfect at it, but we know that's the object of our life. That's the platform we're supposed to take initiation on. When we're convinced by hearing that, and by experiencing of putting our minds upon Krishna consciousness and making the goal of our life to get free from the bodily concept of life and enter into the real conception that I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, and making that the goal of our life, that's the platform we can take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master who comes in the line of Srila Prabhupada and follow the instructions to, what are we going to realize? Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavi Hastini Shuni Chaiva Swapakecha Pandita Samadarshana. We're not going to realize how wonderful we are, how wonderful our national team is, or anything else. We're going to realize how wonderful Krishna and his devotees are. And therefore, by taking shelter of them, we understand that the real value everyone has is not simply their external accomplishments in the material world. It's their relationship with Krishna, eternal relationship with Krishna and the super soul. And therefore, whether one sees vidya vinaya sampane brahmani gava, a brahmin, a cow, an elephant, a dog, or a dog eater, he sees that actually that there's Krishna and there's the eternal soul, and that the eternal soul and Krishna, they're the most value. Everything else has some value from the material point of view, but the soul and Krishna are intrinsically the most valuable things that exist. And everyone is a soul and has Krishna with them. Bhima Prasad, you had some.
Thank you, Maharaj. Just a small question from the previous verse and this verse. Um, Talking about the sama thing, that the equanimity of like what we like the vision we're talking about of the devotee. Um, but as we understand in spiritual life, we are at some point in time we are supposed to distinguish between different classes of people and different classes of devotees. So then, on one hand, it's like seeing like with an equal vision, and another, in order to, I mean, function in the world we live, or even in the society, say for of devotees, so we need to see things as they are. So kindly,
As they
Maharaj, if you
are, well, we have to see things as they are includes seeing things as they are eternally are. Just like, for instance, if someone is in the body of a lion, we understand that within the body of the lion, there's a soul and there's a super soul. But that doesn't mean we enter into the cage of the lion and take its paws and ask for forgiveness for any offense I've made against him, thinking that he was just an ordinary lion, because that would be very impractical. On the other hand, we accept that because of his past activities, the soul has taken the body of a lion and he'll act like a lion. And therefore, if we want to help the lion make advancement, it's not that we treat him like a Mahabhagavat, we treat him like a lion and chant Hare Krishna to him. Like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he went to the Jharkhand forest. He did not bow down before the lions and the elephants and the tigers. He chanted Hare Krishna, and therefore he did them some transcendental, gave them some transcendental experience. And after a while, because of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's potency, they didn't act like lions and deer anymore, or elephants. They acted like devotees. So we have to
I
know how to
presume
how to serve people, devotees, and animals and everyone else appropriately. And our main way of doing that in this age is not to inquire from the lion about philosophical aspects of Krishna consciousness. It's to chant Hare Krishna to them.
I presume, Maharaj, like you are referring to suggesting chanting Hare Krishna to lions when the lion is inside the cage.
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Maharaj.
And also to lion-like people, we should chant Hare Krishna, even when they're not in a cage.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. So the Mahabhagavat in the sixth mantra, he doesn't think I'm advanced. He thinks everyone is Krishna's. And therefore, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has told us, has summarized, when he was asked, what is the behavior of a devotee, of a Vaishnava? He said, Yari Deka Tarikaha Krishna Upadesh Amara Aga Gruhana Tare Desh. Whoever we meet, we should, Yari Deka, whoever we see, which means whoever we meet, Yari Deka Tarikaha Krishna Upadesh. We should try to help them somehow or another make some advancement towards understanding their relationship with Krishna. Now, Prabhupada was expert at that. That's why he was able to expand Krishna consciousness around the world. That's how we understand that Srila Prabhupada was a Mahabhagavat. First of all, he chose the right subject matter, Krishna consciousness, to try to help people. Because Krishna consciousness, factually speaking, is the only science that exists on this planet or in this universe. Everything else, to one degree or another, is mental speculation. Therefore, the most direct way of helping anyone is to explain to them that they're not their body. Now, not everyone will be able to hear that, but to speak of accepting it. But that's the truth. And that's what we want to prepare people, at least, to come to the platform. And after understanding that they're not their body, they understand that there's a person within everyone's heart guiding us, and that we should take shelter of his instructions, of his direction, to realize Krishna, to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That we're not alone. There's a person who can give us enlightenment if we follow the process that he suggests we follow. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 10th chapter, explains everything. Aham savasya pravo matak sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. Krishna introduces himself again as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who, by understanding, one will develop bhava, or ecstasy, and love of God. And therefore he sends his representatives to specifically explain that to people in general. Machita machkata prana bodhiyantash parashparam katayantasram nityam tu shanti cha ramanti cha. The thoughts of my pure devotees, they dwell in me, their lives are surrendered to me, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss by enlightening one another and conversing about me. So the gurus, whether Shiksha Guru or Diksha Guru, the gurus that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is talking about, that Krishna is talking about, those who are teaching about Krishna consciousness, they're not marriage counselors, they're not financial advisors, they're not health coaches. They're just explaining about how to utilize one's chitta, one's consciousness, and one's prana, one's activities in the devotional service of Krishna. Doing which even a neophyte devotee, a beginning devotee, or an intermediate devotee will experience. The neophyte devotee will feel some satisfaction as he gains awareness of his eternality, that he's eternal. That itself is a big relief, to know that we're not going to, when we leave this body, although it's changing, it's not changing us. And even the final change called death, we call death, is not really the death of the soul, it's simply the soul changing into another body. So this is called tushanti, some satisfaction that things are a lot better than I think they are. If we judge things from the material world, it's hopeless and helpless. If we judge things from the spiritual point of view, it's all full of encouragement, because we have, even things don't go as quickly as we want, but it's encouraging to know that we have eternity to become Krishna conscious again. If you have eternity, you can be quite patient. And therefore, we can hear with some confidence and eventually develop our spiritual enthusiasm. So those who are actually on the platform of liberation or beyond it, when they hear about Krishna, they experience Ramante, happiness, pure spiritual happiness and love. Therefore, after hearing from a guru, a bona fide guru, a representative of Krishna, about how to utilize our consciousness by hearing and chanting about Krishna, how to utilize our energies by engaging in devotional service, then one takes to the path, Tesham Sadatam Yuktanam Bhajantam Priti Purvakam Dadami Buddhiyogam Tam Yena Mam Upayanti Te. Then Krishna guides us how to become more steady in devotional service, how to remember Krishna always and never forget him, and how to do it with Priti Purvakam, with loving ecstasy, with care and attention, our service. And then Krishna will give us more and more intelligence how to do that. And as we are able to focus our minds more on Krishna, then Tesham Eva Nukam Bharatam Tvam Agyanacham Tamaha Nasham Yatma Bhavavishto Gyanadipena Bhashvata. Then when Krishna sees at the right time that we're sincerely trying to make progress in devotional service and serve Krishna by focusing our attention and giving our love to him and being a proper instrument for Krishna and his mission, especially to help distribute this awareness, this knowledge to others, then he appears within our heart in the form of consciousness, remembrance especially, or in the form of the deity, reciprocation outside in the form of the deity or the devotees or the holy name. And we experience transcendental ecstasy, tushanti, and by that ecstasy we make spiritual advancement and develop further progressing in devotional service. So the devotee, he understands that there's a process by which I can become Krishna conscious, and if I just follow it properly, learn how to hear, learn how to engage my senses and my mind in Krishna service to the best of my ability, and then gradually, as I make a little advancement, then Krishna will reciprocate, give me intelligence what I'm doing, and then I'll understand a little bit more clearly how to engage in loving reciprocations with other devotees, how to love Krishna without any other extraneous desire, just to love him, how to help the innocent become aware of the fact that they're also eternal servants of Krishna, and how to avoid becoming distracted by those who are trying to distract us from becoming Krishna conscious. So in the mantra 6, he thinks the Mahabhagava's vision in perfection. He thinks that everyone is Krishna's, belongs to Krishna, and therefore he doesn't have any envy or any sectarian hatred. He doesn't have the bodily identification that a materialist or impersonal, that a materialist has especially. So the example is Haridas Thakur. He was beaten in 22 marketplaces, but he didn't have any hatred for his persecutors. He prayed for their welfare, and he saw them as instruments for Krishna, and Krishna protected him. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj didn't hate his father, but he understood that by this torture that his father was putting him through, this was Krishna's arrangement to fulfill multiple reasons. And at the same time, it helped him focus his mind upon Krishna. Just like we have Queen Kunti. Queen Kunti and her family was put into unlimited problems. Vishan Vihagne Purushara Darshanad. Bhima was fed poison. They were put into a house made out of lac and put on fire. They escaped in the forest, and the first person to greet them wanted to eat them. Man-eater Rakshasa. Finally, they escaped the forest, and they were exiled into the forest again for 7 years. And then they came out, and then there was a war, and everyone was trying to kill them. So most people would have to go and see a psychiatrist after such a problematic life. But they were not disturbed by these circumstances, but instead Queen Kunti prayed, Vipadak Shantutak Chasvat Tatra Tatra Jagat Guru Bhavatad Darshanam Yasyat Apuna Bhavadarshanam. She was praying to see these problems again and again, because by seeing them, she said that we see Krishna, and by seeing Krishna, there will be no more seeing repeated birth and death. So we're much more fortunate than Queen Kunti, because we don't have to pray for problems in Kali Yuga. We just have to exist in Kali Yuga, and the problems will automatically come. And if we utilize them to take shelter of Krishna, then we'll become pure devotees of Krishna very quickly. So we no longer sees others as sources of gain, loss of gain, friends and enemies, success and failure. He sees only Krishna's arrangement. So an analogy may be that a child crying during surgery sees cruelty, but a parent sees healing. So now we're up to mantra 8, mantra 7. So what happens when his vision becomes fixed? And that's what he sees. He sees all living beings as spiritual sparks. He's no longer lamenting. He's no more illusion, no more fear. We just read the 7th. Mantra 7. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atma vaibhud janataha tatra ko mohaka shoka ekadvam anupashyataha. One who sees all living entities as spiritual sparks in quality one with the Lord becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? Now, interesting enough, as I said, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavi Hasini Shuni Chaiva Swapaki Cha. So we're trying to act like that. We're trying to develop that vision of understanding and acting as if everyone is Krishna's eternal servant. And we do that principally by trying to engage them in Krishna's service. It's not just a passive, oh, you're also Krishna's servant. We have a relation with people which is active for the most part that we're dealing with. Even when we see people from afar, there's some activity going on within our mind. And that activity can be, how can I do something to help engage them in Krishna's service? Then ihaivatar jita sargo yesham samye samam manak sadosham hi samram brahma tasma brahmanite siddha. Are those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, unless they're always situated in Brahman. And the symptom is the prarishat priyam prapya no dvija prapyacha priyam stira buddhira samudo brahmavid brahmanisthitaha. Person who doesn't rejoice when he obtains something pleasant, nor laments when he obtains something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, unbewildered, and who knows the science of God, is said to be situated in transcendence. So Krishna gives us first he gives us the consciousness and then the symptoms of that consciousness. It's not that we simply claim that we're Brahma, we're equally. No, there must be some practical manifestation of that sameness in the world. One time in Vrindavan, I remember being in Vrindavan in the 70s, and Prabhupada was there. And in Vrindavan temple at that time, some people would come dressed as ladies, especially the Saki Beki group. And the Saki Beki group, they come to the temple and during the kirtan they roll on the ground. And they ask Prabhupada, these people are coming, they're dressed as ladies, as gopis, and during the kirtan they're exhibiting ecstasy and rolling on the ground. What should we do? So Prabhupada said, you should go up to them and kick them in the head. And if they're actually in ecstasy, they won't notice it. And if they're not in ecstasy, they'll run out of the temple. So that's what happened. They ran out of the temple. So there has to be some practical manifestation of the realization. Then Krishna says, Vayas parsheva saktatma vinyat sukham sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukhamakshayam ashnute. A person who's not attracted by material sense gratification or material objects, but if such a person is not attracted by external things, but is always entranced, enjoying the pleasure from within. In this way, a self-realized soul enjoys unlimited happiness because he concentrates on the Supreme. So he's not only equally minded towards gain and loss, not only he knows the science of God, not only he's free from illusion, but he's focused his attention on Krishna. Therefore, Krishna will go on in this 5th chapter. But anyhow, that's some of the essential points how a Mahabhagavat is equally minded towards everyone and tries to engage in the devotional service. And this way, he's able to fix his mind always on Krishna. We'll ask questions in a few minutes. I'll just finish. We're up to the 8th mantra now. And what is the object of that vision in the 8th mantra? Saparijachtukam akayam avranam ashnaviram shudam apapavidam kavira manashi paribu swayambur yata tatayator yatachasvati vyasamavyaha. Such a person must factually know the greatest of all, this personality of Godhead, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated, the self-sufficient philosopher who has been filling everyone's desire since time immemorial. So in the 8th mantra it explains that Krishna is pure, uncontaminated, and self-sufficient. So it describes a personality who the Mahabhagavad always sees. The qualities we're emphasized are he's untouched by sin, he's supremely pure, he's beyond the material nerves, completely spiritual and perfectly arranged. So the Mahabhagavata's vision is he sees the world not as chaotic, suffering is not random, history is not accidental. Everything is perfectly arranged by a perfectly pure person, Krishna. The Mahabhagavata does not ask, why is this happening? He asks, how is Krishna teaching us through this? So, Krishna manifests himself in his different ways through his energies. So therefore it emphasizes also that the deity is also a manifestation of Krishna's mercy. The devotees are also manifestations to different degrees of Krishna's mercy. Therefore the Mahabhagavad doesn't see just the activities, he sees the inner consciousness of the persons who are performing those activities. Therefore it says in the Bhagavad Gita that someone may be performing activity, but whether that activity is for Krishna or not is actually what makes the difference between acting in the material nature and acting in the spiritual nature. Therefore, when Krishna says in the 9th chapter, Abhajananti mamudha manushim dhanam ashrityam param bhavam ajanato mama bhuta maheshwaram, that the fools, they deride me at my descending in this human form. They don't know my transcendental nature, my supreme dominion over all that be. So this is the essential point of the Bhagavad Gita. This is the essential point of the Isopanisad, that Krishna is a person. He may not meet our understanding of what an expectation of a supreme person would be, because even Brahma was bewildered, thinking, how can the demigods are glorifying this cowherd boy who's holding fruit salad in his left hand instead of the right one, and they're claiming he's God. So even Brahma couldn't appreciate Krishna. Indra thought Krishna was simply a little rascal little boy deviating the residents of Vrindavan from properly worshiping him, and therefore he actually tried to destroy Vrindavan. But when Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill with his left pinky and held it for 7 days, then it said Indra became thunderstruck, seeing how powerful this little boy was. So what to speak of ourselves, what to speak of the ordinary people in this material world. Therefore Krishna says that Mogaisha Moga Karmano Moga Jnana Vichetasaha Rakshasiyam Asrim Chaiva Prakriti Mohinim Shritaha. That if we don't know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we don't make any attempt to understand Krishna through the process of hearing and devotional service, then whatever we're doing to get something material, to gain something material, will be baffled. We all know that, it's just common sense. that whatever we gain here in the material world, we're going to lose, except for the karma to gain it. Even that's temporary. And our attempts of knowledge, if we don't reach the conclusion that Krishna is God, what conclusion are we going to reach? Who's going to be God for us? Someone's going to be our leader. Someone's going to be our aim of life. And if it's not Krishna, it's going to be some temporary place we're going to go to. And their hopes for liberation will all be defeated. Because without taking shelter of Krishna and realizing our spiritual identity, then there's no real eternal liberation. Even we merge in Brahman, it's just also temporary. We'll be defeated and baffled in our attempt. Therefore, Krishna says, Mahatmanastu Mamparta Daivim Prakriti Mashitya Bhajatnana Manaso Gyatpabhutadim Avyam. That there are devotees and they're under the internal energy of Krishna rather than the external energy. And Krishna calls them Mahatmas, great souls. And there may be different degrees of Mahatmas. Sadatam kirtiyantam mam yatantascha dradavrataha namasyantasamam bhaktya nituta upasite. Those who are simply trying to hear and chant about Krishna's glories, they're called neophytes. They're on the verge, on the path of devotional service, and they're on the path of coming to the platform of real, pure devotional service. And when they take to the platform of initiation and try to become fixed in sadhana and dedicate their lives to the preaching, then they come to the platform of nishta, liberation, then they're considered to be intermediate devotees. They're more often and more intensively under the influence of the internal energy, and less under the external energy. And those who are namasyantasramam bhakta nitukta upasate, those who are experiencing how wonderful Krishna is, who are experiencing love of Krishna, and therefore feeling unlimitedly humble, realizing how merciful Krishna is, they're considered the topmost devotees. And it's not that so this is what Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita. The topmost devotees, we learn how to engage in steady, regulated devotional service under the directions of the pure devotees of Krishna, and also to teach how to encourage others just to hear about Krishna's glories and to chant them and live one's life the best they can in relationship to those. So this is more or less a summary of the Mahabhagavat. The Mahabhagavat understands Krishna's inconceivable energies. He understands how Krishna is working in the material world. He sees everyone and everything in relationship to Krishna. He understands that everyone is on the path, or Krishna is trying to encourage everyone to become Krishna conscious, either directly through his pure devotees or indirectly through his material energy. Chastising the living material nature is simply chastising the living entities for their causeless unwillingness to become Krishna conscious. But due to their stubborn nature, they don't accept the chastisement as mercy. Instead, they rebel against Krishna in every form. His material energy, his form of time, Krishna himself personally, they're just set on rebelliousness. But the Mahabhagavad understands that this is the mercy, whatever is going on is all by Krishna's mercy, and he understands how to act as an instrument for Krishna to encourage people in the positive way to take up the path of Krishna consciousness and obtain the full mercy of Krishna rather than what we can say hard love through the material energy. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? We have some Doshna and Hitika.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
So I have confusion from the purport of mantra 5. It is mentioned that Krishna is Saguna and Nirguna. Now, how Krishna is Nirguna? I have confusion in that thing.
Well, there's saguna with material qualities, and there's nirguna without any material qualities. So Krishna has qualities, but he doesn't have any material qualities. Therefore, he's nirguna. He has unlimited qualities, but none of them are material. Material basically means the absence of Krishna consciousness. We think that there's something material. That's called illusion. But Krishna is never under illusion. Just like a spider can build a web and all the insects get trapped on the web, but the spider is never trapped by the web. So Krishna is never in the conception that he's that there's no God, or that he's in the conception that he's God, but he really is God. So there's no problem with that. And we can understand that living entity is also part and parcel of God, but he's not the same as Krishna. And that way Krishna can have unlimited qualities. But for instance, he has no material lust. He's not influenced by material greed. He's not influenced by material illusion. He's not influenced by anything material quality. Therefore, he has no material anger. He has no material desires like we have. He only has pure spiritual love and spiritual desires. So therefore, he has no material qualities. When Krishna chastises Hiranyakashipu, he does it out of love, not out of enviousness. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so
Radha
much.
Krishna Priya Shri Radha Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Maharaj, I have a confusion. You mentioned that the problem is in material life start when we think that there are problems in material life. And Krishna declares in Bhagavad Gita that this place is a dukhalaya, the place of miseries. And at the same time, in chapter 6, he mentioned that mind is our greatest enemy. So I have a confusion like from where the problem arises. It is from the world, which is a place of miseries, or it is from our own mind, which is our greatest enemy.
Well, I said there's no problems except for the fact that we think there are problems. But we think
Oh,
there are problems. This is Aniruddha Prabhu, by the way. This is devotees from Pakistan. Aniruddha, Aniruddha Prabhu is the temple president of Melbourne here in Australia. Very big congregation here. And today they had Snani Yatra.
That might be odd for people to understand, but it's summertime here.
Supposedly summertime is it's practically as cold as wintertime in some places.
And yeah, in India and Pakistan, it's winter time.
Yes, here is supposedly summertime.
It's summertime. Usually it's summertime.
So,
I'll take this.
okay. So the living entity, he's let me remember exactly what Krishna Priya was asking.
I can
Uh,
repeat, Maharaj,
can you
if you want.
repeat what you were asking? Yeah,
Yeah, I have a confusion like this place is a place of miseries,
misery.
dukhalayam.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Krishna says that mind is our greatest enemy. So I have a confusion from where the problem arises, from this place or from our mind. Like I
Well,
just want to
the place is. There's no problem with the place. Problem is our perception of the place. That we're in this place, we think that this is a place we're supposed to figure out how we're going to enjoy, how to control this material nature to enjoy it. That's the only problem. We're the cause of the problem because instead of using this place to serve Krishna in Krishna consciousness, we're utilizing this place to rob from Krishna, to oppose Krishna. And therefore we're being chastised by the illusory energy. So the problem lies with our misunderstanding of what this place is meant for. It's meant for teaching us how to become Krishna conscious rather than learning from others how to try to steal from Krishna and get rid of Krishna.
thank you so much, Maharaj.
Just like a group of thieves they rob a bank, and the head thief goes to the hideout with the rest of the thieves and declares to the thieves, "My dear fellow thieves, thank you very much for robbing this bank. You did a great job. All glories to the thieves. But now that we've stolen all this money, I have only one request to all of you. Please, let us divide this money up honestly." So they're all a group of thieves, but now the head thief is trying to make them into honest thieves. But by nature, they're thieves. So because we're trying to steal from Krishna and replace Krishna with ourselves, that's our problem. Because it can't be done, and the only result is we get chastised by the illusory energy for trying to do so. When we stop doing that, and we recognize our real position, try to utilize things for Krishna, then there's no more problems for us.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. Barka Hatvani.
Krishna Maharaj, we like to know humble obeisances. Maharaj, I have this question. Like, you just said that the Mahabhagavat is like he doesn't hate anyone or no envy regard like near everyone. Anyone. So, like we being the practicing, we still practice our tolerance and our these things. But at a time, it comes that the mind, the ego, the emotions become so strong that we are not really able to apply those teachings at that specific time. And we be like, okay, now something is taking up. So, I just want to know what should be the thought process of that person at that time to not let those vikars, if I say, to like attack them, or like how to build up that shield at that specific moment.
Well, Arjuna asks a similar question in the Bhagavad Gita. As a matter of fact, this is a question that was asked twice by Arjuna. Well, at least Krishna gives the same problem twice. When he says, Shrayan Swadamo Viguna Paradharma Swanustitat Svedharame Dilinam Shrayat Paradharmo Bhayavaha. So Arjuna was asking, what is the reason that I want to do the right thing, but I wind up doing the wrong thing? So Krishna said that it is better to perform one's own prescribed duty, even if one is unsuccessful, than to accept someone else's duty, because destruction in the course of one's own duty is better, because to follow someone else's path is dangerous. So then Arjuna is asking, well, what's the problem? Why can't I do what I'm supposed to do? I want to do it, but I can't do it. I just get misdirected. So Arjuna says, Ata keno prayuktoyam papam charati purusham anicham napi varshnaya baladiva niyojita. What is this force that's impelling me to do the wrong thing? So then Krishna says, Shri Bhagavana Vacha Kama Esha Krodha Esha Raja Guna Samudvava Mahashano Mahapatma Vidinam Ihavarina. It is lust only, Arjuna, which is born in the mode of passion and later transforms into wrath, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. As fire is covered by smoke, as the embryo is covered by the womb, or as the mirror is covered by dust, so similarly the living entity is covered by different degrees of this lust. So we lack the vision and the experience, not only the vision, but the experience of what actually Krishna consciousness is. It remains a theory to us. Well, that, extra piece of gulab jamun is quite practical sometimes to us. When we have to choose between the theory of becoming Krishna conscious and eating that extra gulab jamun, it seems much more practical to eat the extra gulab jamun for right now, and tomorrow I'll become Krishna conscious. And therefore, because it remains a theory, sometimes we make the wrong choices. Avritam jnana etena, jnanino nityavarina, kamrupena kuntya, dusprena nalenacha. That the man's pure consciousness is covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. So we're being impelled by material nature. She won't give up so easily. We're being burned by the material desires, and they won't let up until she says we're going to fulfill them. Prahlad Maharaj compares it to scratching an itch. We can try and tolerate, but if the itch gets too much, we say, well, forget it. I'd rather scratch the itch and suffer the consequences. I can't tolerate it anymore. Therefore, we have to go back a step, Krishna says, understand what's the root cause why the itch is so strong. And therefore he says, Indriyani manobuddhirasya dishtanam uchate etera vimohat yesha jnanam dehinam. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of lust, which veils the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. So in that verse, Krishna explains that the root cause is due to the fact that we've been hearing from the wrong people since time immemorial, and hearing about about what? About how wonderful different activities in the material world are. And we've tried them out, and some of them we've actually gotten some satisfaction, some appreciation from doing them. Especially satisfaction comes from a lot of appreciation. We've become good at doing certain things, whatever they may be. And we've gotten appreciation from others for it. And that has made us feel good and deepen our relationship with those persons. Therefore, hearing about them, then the mind and senses naturally have a tendency to want to do those same activities to get the same appreciation and the same feelings of satisfaction. And just, depends on the different things we've done, and there's different degrees of the impetus to satisfy the senses and mind. But when the soul thinks like that, he doesn't have sufficient experience of ecstasy or love in Krishna consciousness, then naturally he tells, well, just for now, I'm not a pure devotee. I can't really, tomorrow I'll become a pure devotee, or eventually I will, but I got to get some satisfaction. I can't tolerate this anymore. I got to fulfill this desire. So then material nature gives us a false ego, puts us under this, so we can use our intelligence to satisfy that desire, however it may be temporary. And then the result is that usually afterwards we may lament, or we may decide, well, the heck with it, I'm just going to keep on scratching.
Thank you,
Therefore,
Maharaj.
Krishna advises, Tasmat tvam indriyanyado niyamya bharatarshava prapmanam prajahiyenam jnana vijnanashinam. Therefore, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and destroy this and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. So that's why we do sadhana bhakti every day. We don't expect that suddenly by doing sadhana bhakti, then all my material desires will go away, and the desire to scratch that itch will never longer be there anymore. But we understand it will be gradually lessened to some extent as we experience a higher and higher taste in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, we have different ashrams. Not everyone is supposed to be a Nashtika brahmachari, nor should we remain in a household life. But household life is there, so some scratching is there in every ashram, but to different degrees, that's all. With the idea that by performing sadhana bhakti, even in household life, with a family, then gradually we'll get a higher and higher taste, and the desire for eating, sleeping, mating, defending will gradually be decreased until we can actually go perform austerities, happily perform austerities, and try to actually get rid of these, not only regulate them, but get rid of them. And then eventually one can actually come to the Brahman platform and tell others about how to get rid of their scratching. And then Krishna says, don't worry, Indriyani manobuddhiras, Indriyani param brahur, Indriyabhis brahmanak, marasastu para buddhir, yo buddhe paratastu saha. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. So in other words, we do have control. It may not be absolute control, but to a certain extent we have faith and we can take shelter of Krishna. And therefore by doing so we can gradually control the poisonous senses which are always impelling us to scratch the itch will gradually become purified and the itch will go away. We won't be impelled to scratch it anymore. Therefore, Krishna says, Evam Bude Puram Budva Samstamyatmanam Atmana Vihi Shatru Mahabaho Kamrupam Darashadam. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to material senses, mind, and intelligence, one should control the higher by the self by the lower, and thus conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So our means of conquering this insatiable enemy, hear about Krishna, try to understand what Krishna says, try to apply it with conviction in our lives, try to develop the skill of applying it, and then try to develop some good qualities, the characters of try and follow the character of a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, take him as the leader, follow his instructions, and try to become qualified like he is. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, so I think we can stop here. Thank you very much. Grantharashi, Shupanishad ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Gaur Premanande.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to His Holiness Prahladananda Swami Maharaj, Prahladananda Swami Maharaj
All
ki
glories to
jai.
Srila Prabhupada and the assembled devotees.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj, for blessing us in this way. Maharaj, just before you leave, right before you leave, there is this one devotee here with us, Varsh. Where is Varsha? Varsha Mulani. Varsha Mulani? Yeah, she's there. She had her birthday today, Maharaj. If you please bless her, she's maybe a little hesitant, but yeah, doesn't just little hesitant. Varsha
Please lift
Mataji,
up.
you can open your video and can share if possible. I mean, there's an internet issue, Maharaj, in Pakistan, not very good. Generally,
Okay.
it's just
Yeah,
it's
sure.
important.
No problem. So
Hare
please.
Yeah,
Krishna
there she.
Maharaj. Dandavat
So,
Pranam.
yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. So may you take to this process of Krishna consciousness so that in your next life, either you'll become more Krishna conscious and you'll start where you left off, or you'll go back and join Krishna in his pastimes, spiritual world.
Thank you so much.
So every
What more?
birth is bringing us hopefully a little bit, every birthday is hopefully is bringing us a little bit closer to Krishna and to his pure devotees, like
Thank you
Srila
so
Prabhupada.
much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Maharaj.
So good luck with your Bhakti Shastri. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
His Holiness Prahlada Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
So much.
Gay
Hare
Maharaj
Krishna.
gay. गए महाराज गए सबको नींद आ रही थी ना anyway that's okay but this is like I got this opportunity कि मिल गया मुझे कि अच्छा था आज वर्षा का जन्मदिन था so this is generally the etiquette and in our culture the etiquette is the other way around if it's your birthday you are the one who's supposed to serve if you want it you go and you ask for it. So like in general life, secular life, हमारा जो होता है उसके अंदर on the day of birthday we are the king or the queens. You know, so like everybody should come to us and they should propitiate us. Spiritual life में उल्टा होता है. If it's your birthday in the morning, go to the temple, go find some service, do some service. If you can, if it's possible, then do some donation or no required. Just give your time to the devotees. Go seek their blessings, seek their That is one day, the day is special because it gave you an opportunity so that you can go back to Krishna. So it's just the other way around, not like that's arrogance actually. कि मेरा जन्मदिन है देखते हैं कौन किस किस को याद है कौन कौन मुझे वो करता है विश करता है तुम्हें चाहिए तुम जाओ ना like it's just like so that's the idea in Vaishnavism this is the idea in secular life that's the other way around. That's why जब बर्थडे मनता है सेकुलर लाइफ में वो क्या करते हैं केक ला के मुंह पे मारते हैं क्योंकि सारी फ्रस्ट्रेशन निकालते हैं ना उस टाइम उस दिन तो बर्थडे बम्प्स का क्या मतलब होता है पूरे साल की भड़ास निकालो सामने, जिसका उसको मारो पीटो उसको. That's what it is. But yeah, so but this is Vaishnava culture is different. You guys need to like gradually learn these things. Good. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Okay. अब इस हफ्ते और कोई क्लास नहीं है, अगले हफ्ते एक क्लास है, दैट इज चंद्रमौली महाराज, और उसके हफ्ते एक क्लास है. ओके. सो इन द मीन टाइम, अगर आप लोगों को ऐसा लगे कि ईशोपनिषद सर के ऊपर से जा रहा है, टेल मी, देन वी विल अकॉर्डिंगली मेक अरेंजमेंट. अदरवाइज मुझे कोई शौक नहीं है आप लोगों के सर पे सवार होने का. अगर with 5 classes you can get the gist of it and then clear the exams, it's like yeah, what do I care? But if you feel की जरूरत है तो बता देना. ओके. चलो. हरे कृष्णा. हरे कृष्णा.
Hare
Love,
Krishna
love.
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna. Hare Krishna
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna
Dhananjay.
Prabhuji.
Hare
Pranam.
Krishna.